Welcome to Oak Ridge University Heart Family Masters program. And today we are so pleased to have a wonderful, wonderful guest, our own Reverend Dr. Kimberly Marooney. She's an author, a writer, a teacher, and she's the first person who has ever received a PhD in angelology. Let me read this a little bit here. She is an angel expert and author of best-selling Angel Blessings and Angel Love Cards, as well as several books about angels, including the Little Book of Angel Healing. And she's a fourth-generation minister and devotes her life to helping others experience personal presence of angels in their lives. She's also a devoted Heart family member and serves on our Oak Ridge University board. We are so happy to have you with us. Thank you, Kimberly, for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here with you, Eva. Thank you for asking.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your background other than what I've read here. Give us a little background about how your spiritual journey evolved and brought you to this place with Oak Ridge and with Jeshua.
My spiritual path started pretty young, and angels were a pretty big part of it. It started out with me just being curious about them. I was mesmerized by them. So I read, everything I could find. There wasn't much. When we were young, there wasn't much.
True.
And as my mentor, Judith Larkin Reno, said that like in the 60s and the 70s, the information we had about angels was limited to Christmas cards. And that's fairly accurate. So when I was working with her on my doctorate degree in angelology, it was up to me to design what that curriculum might be, because nobody else ever had. So that was one of my early experiences with curriculum development. And from there, the angels asked me to create an angel ministry. So they very generously provided the curriculum that was needed for that. And 12 books later, 100 angel ministers later, my mentor, Judith Larkin Reno, asked me to be her successor as president of Gateway University. And after about 5 years, I was one of those drag-along people. I was never quick to say yes in the early days. And I recommend saying yes because the longer you don't say yes, the more you suffer. So when spirit calls upon you, it's best to just say yes and leap into the fear and the unknown and just do it, even though like I had no idea how to be president of a university. I didn't want to be. It was kind of funny because I did not enjoy the process of getting my doctorate. But it's so funny because Judith Larkin Reno was able to look into my heart and soul and know that I was born for this. I truly was born for this. And now, what a surprise. I love supporting others in earning their doctorates, like you, Eva.
Well, thank you so very much. And I apologize for not mentioning that right away, but you are the president of Gateway University, a university for higher consciousness. And it has been an incredible pleasure to work with you on getting my doctorate too. When Spirit calls, that's certainly the time to answer. So tell us more about that process for you and how you also include Jeshua and the teachings and messages from Jeshua and Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Father Joseph that Oak Ridge is built upon.
Well, like everybody, my life has had its ups and downs and twists and turns, and I've been through some pretty hard and traumatic experiences in my life. I've also had the pleasure of having some extraordinary mentors. And Judith Larkin Reno introduced me, I started working with her in my 20s, and she introduced me to many different teachings that have supported my personal spiritual growth and development my whole life. So, our spiritual growth and development is a lifelong endeavor. We are lifelong learners. And as long as we remain engaged with life, then we remain youthful and useful and joyful in life. So back in those early days when life wasn't so joyful, but I was quite youthful, one of the early techniques that I learned through Judith was from the Essene teachings. The Essenes were a group of a community that was around before the time of Jesus that actually prepared for the Messiah to come and supported Jesus through his ministry, through his life, and afterwards protecting his family and supporting his lineage, his heritage. So the Essenes had a teaching where you tuned into and received and embodied the energy that was intended in the message. It could have been a message of words. It could have been an artistic work like a painting, or it could have been music. It could have been any form of expression. And the point was to connect with the source, so connect with the creator of that particular piece. So as an example, this one here over my shoulder, my mother painted that. And she's on the other side now. So I have that in here because she touched that. Her physical energy, she painted that. Her physical energy is in the paper that she touched. It's in the paint that she applied. It's in her chop. You see her name and her chop in Chinese there on the side of the picture, the right side. Her energy is in that. And so when I come into this office and I look at that picture, I can feel my mother. I have another one here right in front of me. And every day when I come in here, I look at it, I feel the loving support of my mom. And at the end of the day, I thank her for being here with me. I give her a little kiss and I turn out the light and go home. So being able to cultivating the ability to connect with the source energy is helpful in so many different ways. So one of the ways that I've done that is, I really learned this when my husband died, because that was a very traumatic and very difficult time for me. And so I learned that I could use quotes to help me refocus my energy, refocus my attention, uplift myself, and move forward, even the darkest of days when I felt like all was lost. And so I would be on the lookout for those precious quotes that were most valuable. This is where Oak Bridge comes in. So shortly after I moved to Washington 10 years ago, I met Eva and a few other people. I started receiving the daily messages of Jeshua. I started coming to events and reading books. And in those daily messages, Ted's the guy who pulls the messages out of the vast library of channeled information that our dear Judith Coates received from Jeshua. Ted has a real gift for magically delivering just the quotes I need to have in my own personal life.
Interesting how that works. We're all one, aren't we?
Isn't it? Isn't it? I'm always astounded when I read a quote how, wow, that one's just absolutely perfect for me today. So when we just read them, we're getting them in a part of our brain that's more intellectual. The words feel right, the concept feels right, it can feel comforting, it can feel helpful. When we engage with it further, and this is one of the techniques I learned from these scenes, is to contemplate the text.
Yes.
So rather than just reading it and going on with your day, you take that text into contemplation. You sit with it, you explore, what do the different parts of it mean? What do the different words mean? What do the different phrases mean? How am I actually embodying that in my life? How am I living that energy through me, through contemplating this quote, through my personal connection with Jeshua, and being a radiant beacon of that love light in the world? That's different from just reading it, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And even reading it more than once puts you into that space of trying to understand it deeper.
Funny you should say that, because I also looked for practices that I could develop that helped me to linger with the energy and the words of the quotes. So I have these all over my place here. I'm going to show you what these are, but see these things. So here's my last book, my little book of angel healing. I have that with me today. Right. Yep, your poetry. So what I do is I started out doing something called junk journaling after my mother died, because I needed something to help me cope with everything I was feeling after she was gone. And so junk journaling does these things that they call tags. And, what they use them for is really inane. Like it's got, some silly little picture on there that might look kind of appealing. But, I took one look at these tags and I thought, I got a use for them. So I started to look for interesting papers. So this is one series I did. I found these interesting papers. I did a little watercolor on some paper. I cut them into these nice little tag shapes. I made this fun little kind of thing on the top and put some ribbons through them for color, because I love ribbons and color. So while I'm doing that, I'm thinking about the quote. I'm feeling energized by the color. These are really energizing colors. They're playful. So I'm feeling playful. And then as I'm working on them, I take great care to pick the paper that goes with the energy of the words. Let's start with this one. Yeah. So this one is, so close your eyes and receive this into your heart. Don't just listen. Close your eyes and receive this into your heart. What you bring forth into this consciousness is but a part of the totality of the isness of you. And it is a most remarkable miracle that you do, that your focus is so intensely upon individuality that you can put aside momentarily the remembrance of all that you are. Now, aren't you different now than you were before I started to read that? I am. I'm changed.
Absolutely. You feel yourself expanding.
So while I make these, I'm focused on what is that? What you bring forth into this consciousness is but a part of the totality of the isness of you. So what part am I?
Good question.
What is the totality? How can I have experiences of the totality even for a moment? And wow, I'm going to really commend myself on this miracle I do by focusing so intently on the Kimberly me that I don't remember the wholeness of me. But I have choice. What if I can choose in my meditation and even in my life to put aside momentarily and bring in the remembrance of all that I am? And so I use these little arts and crafty, projects for that kind of focusing. And then I have them all around me. I only have 2 with me today, but I've got hundreds of these. Different sizes, different colors, different configurations, shapes. And I generally have, a bunch of them with me. I've got, I think, 4 on my desk right now. I've got a bunch all around me. And anytime I have a pause or a moment, I'll just grab one and I'll hang out with it for a few minutes. I'll contemplate it for a few minutes. I'll feel into the isness, into the connection with Yeshua or the spirit or source or wherever it's wanting to take me. Or I'll remember that love is the most important thing. I was going to read this one, but I've got a couple of the words in the middle that I can't even figure out what they say. So my great writing. So there are many ways that we can do that. We can do it through art. Some people sing. Eva writes poetry. So I encourage you, our listeners, to find the modality or the technique or the fun that helps you to really integrate and embody the teachings that are the most sacred to you.
That's beautiful. And that's putting the information from the head to the heart. And I think that's what Jeshua wants us to do, is to connect the heart so that we can really take these and this love that he puts into words and put it into our lives and make our lives different, more compassionate, more loving.
My objective with these is to hang out with it until it becomes true for me and a part of who I am.
That's powerful.
So it's not something out there that I'm reaching for in a moment of need, but it's a precious gem that becomes, that I live into, that I embody, that becomes a part of me.
And you make art out while you're doing it. Yeah, that's very, very powerful for us to take into our lives and bring the mystic part of ourselves into this reality. I like how you talk sometimes about the local self and the higher self. I've used that example with folks too, and they seem to get that idea of a local self. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
We can thank Barbara Marx Hubbard for that, and she didn't make it up. The scientists were starting to use it. The string theorists and the quantum scientists were starting to talk about the local self and the cosmic self. So science is getting pretty exciting right now. Scientists have discovered that, in the universe, if you're looking at the cosmos, you're looking at what we consider to be our universe. If you weigh all of the matter that we can see in the universe, it's only 4%.
Yeah, amazing.
So what's that other 96%? That's a pretty big question. So they've been dancing around dark matter. Is it dark matter? Is it this? Is it that? And so Barbara Marx Hubbard started to call it the local self and the non-local self, following the lead of science way back in the late 1900s. And I know Barbara was very special to you. I got to meet her in person a couple of times. And you did too. I remember you did too. She was a remarkable person. But the local self, we get that. Here's the local self, it's me. And coming back to the isness, that totality, the isness of the totality, that's the rest of me. So if you want to think of it that way, this is the 4%. But the isness, the totality is the rest of me. And it's through that isness, it's through that totality that I connect with the air that I'm breathing. I can become one with the air that I'm breathing in meditation. I can become one with the fabric of my clothing. I can become one with the sounds I'm hearing around me and the seagulls walking outside and the sunlight coming through and hitting me. I can become one with the people around me and the ocean that's out there and the ships going by. I can become one with my mother's art and the other art that's in this beautiful space here. There's some beautiful Buddhas here. I can become one with the chair I'm sitting on when I just take a few breaths and allow the local me to dissolve into the sea of bliss that is the all that is. And that's how we experience those states of divine bliss, of oneness, the peace that passes understanding. It's all in that inner experience of isness, the totality of the isness that Yeshua promises us in this quote.
Wonderfully said. That other 96%, and I think 100%, that's love.
Yeah, yeah. And what is that 96% but love? Because at the essence of everything is divine love.
Exactly. Every breath we take, we inhale spirit, inspiration. in,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's so exciting to see the world in such an expanded, loving space versus what most of us grew up in. But that was our beginning. That was our space to jump off of.
Well, it's more important than ever now because we humans have managed to cultivate a culture of separation and us against them, especially here in America, but it's happening in other places around the world as well. So as we look out at the conflict and the divisiveness that's happening in the world, this is what we came for. There are millions of light workers in embodiment now. That's us. If you're watching this and you don't know it, if you're here, you're a light worker. Your purpose here is to feel the presence of the divine, to feel that presence of divine love, to embody it into the cells of your physical body, and to be a radiant presence of that love in your life, for your family, for your friends, for your community, for your coworkers, for your neighbors, you know, even for people that you don't like, for people that you don't think you get along with. And this is our challenge, to learn to put aside any kind of judgment we might have, or getting sucked in to do the them versus us thing. You know, that's really easy to do. I'll watch a YouTube where somebody's ranting about something, and in a heartbeat, you know, I'm with them. Oh yeah, there's them and there's us, and oh no. And I have to calm myself down and say, whoa, wait a minute. What am I doing? I'm contributing to that. Or as some people say, I'm feeding that wolf. What do I want to feed?
Exactly.
I want to feed peace. I want to feed our connection. I want to feed the remembrance that we all have so much in common. And if it comes back to, if the only thing you can have in common that you start with is we're both humans, we have a head, we have a torso, most of us have arms and legs, most of us communicate through some kind of something that comes out of our mouth. We're connected in that way. We're brothers and sisters in humanity just because of that. And if we keep going, there's so much that we have in common. Like most of us around here live in America. We have that in common. A healthy America behooves us. It supports a healthy America, supports a good life for us, a peaceful life. Peacefulness is good for us. And as we're watching conflict, as we're watching floods and fires and earthquakes and hurricanes and typhoons and all kinds of other things happen, what can we do about that? And what we need to do is come back to quotes like this that help us, like this other one I wanted to share with you too, because this one is significant. So close your eyes again and listen to this one, because this one is really perfect for right now. Feel this one in the cells of your body, in your heart, in your soul. Hear this as if it was being spoken to you personally, because that was the intent for you, for it to be heard by you personally. The more you live life conscious of my presence within, the closer you will move toward being a conscious Christ in partnership with me, which is why you incarnated into this life. That is your goal. That is your purpose. The more you ask for assistance in this regard and stay open to that assistance, surrender to that assistance, the more that will be provided. So when we're watching that news clip or that YouTube with people who are just definitely not on your page, not in your tribe, rather than judge them, view them as brothers and sisters with compassion. Practice holding them with love in your heart. Practice having the spiritual maturity to allow a diversity of opinions to coexist. That is such an important thing to practice allowing a diversity of opinions to coexist, where you don't need to force your opinion on them, and you're not allowing them to force their opinion on you. Neither are you allowing yourself to struggle over their opinion, judging them, making them wrong, trying to fix them, or whatever. So by having allowance, acceptance, one of the ways that's helped me with this is I imagine, what would Jeshua think? What would Mother Mary think? Standing here looking at this person, would they be in judgment? Would they be fighting with them? No. They would pretty much disregard whatever it was they were saying, because that's irrelevant. Whatever's coming out of their mouth is irrelevant. And they would hold them in the presence of divine love. That's the only thing that truly matters. So can I do that? I aspire to that level of mastery inside myself, where when I'm getting triggered like crazy by somebody, I can take a step back, like Jeshua says, take a step back, become the witness, become the observer. Take a breath, disregard anything they're saying, and just find a way to love them.
Yes, that's the formula he gives us.
Mm-hmm.
Stop, breathe, love.
Yeah. The more we can do that, the happier we are in ourselves, the more balanced and peaceful we are in ourselves, the calmer we are. When we get all excited about stuff, our cortisol levels spike. That makes us fat and unhealthy and stressed. That stresses our heart, our lungs. So when we can just find simple ways to calm it down, whenever we feel ourselves getting triggered, say, oh, wow, isn't that interesting? Like I say, I tell myself, cool your jets, girl. And maybe I'll turn it off. I'll take a breath. I'll just close my eyes for a minute. I'll relax and I'll calm down. Get that cortisol moved out of my body. Get that fight or flight moved out of my body. Find that place of peacefulness in myself. Remove the message from whatever that person was and see them as a being of light and just direct light to them.
That's perfect. I mean, I often use the example of that Jeshua gave us. He was out on the boat on the Sea of Galilee with the apostles, and he fell asleep in the boat, and there was the storm, which is metaphor for our life. And they wake him up and say, "Hey, Jeshua, do something." And he just says, "Peace, be still." So that's exactly what you're saying. And that's what I try to do for myself too, is when things get a little rough, I step back and peace. That's the goal.
They had an interesting theory back then. And that theory was written out in the story of Jonah and the whale. And Jonah, like Jesus, was out at sea and when a storm came up. And like the disciples, they roused Jonah and started querying him. Because the theory was that when a storm came up while you were at sea like that, it was because someone on the boat was not right with God.
Yeah.
And who was that? So like with Jonah, they were trying to figure out who is not right with God. Is it you? And in the case of Jonah, sure enough, it was Jonah, because God had asked Jonah to go to this town of people who would cut him down on the spot because he was an enemy of those people. I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was. I haven't thought of this story for a while. And Jonah didn't want to do that because he knew that they wouldn't listen to him. They wouldn't receive the message of God that he was supposed to deliver. They would just kill him. So he was on that boat trying to escape God. So when the people on the boat discovered this dilemma, that Jonah was the one who wasn't right with God, they threw him overboard.
Yeah, I remember that.
And because God needed Jonah, this great fish surfaced and swallowed him up. Yuck. And so I think of the fish, the great fish or the whale or whatever it was, as like a life support system for Jonah. And this whale actually vomited Jonah up on the shore of the place that God wanted him to go. So at this point, you know, the gig's up, the jig's up. He's got to go. Here he is. He's got to go. So he summoned his courage. He went in, and my goodness, they actually listened to him. They did what God asked them to do, and they repented and they were saved. And the most interesting part of the story for me is that Jonah was furious. Jonah went off to live in the caves after that, and he was deeply resentful. He was bitter, and the rest of his life was horrible. Here we are. Part of life is discovering, well, okay, so who's not right with God right now? What's happening? And so we could look at our life circumstances like that. We could look at the fires and the floods and, you know, the earth changes, everything else that's happening. We could look at our cultural problems, the war and the conflict that are happening. We could look at that as, well, a lot of people are not right with God right now. Yeah, that's the case. And we can't fix that, but we can begin with ourselves.
Exactly.
We can find peace and love in ourselves. And we can be a beacon of that peace and love that helps others calm down, that helps others find that peace and joy and love within themselves, so that it's a one person by one person, like a domino effect. And the more people who are able to be in a place of peace and love at once that we can muster, the quicker we'll be able to come to some real solutions. Because when we're battling, we can't solve problems when we're battling. War and battle, that's no way to solve a problem. We just can't do it. We have to come to a place of peace within, and then problems can be solved. Then we can collaborate. Then we can love our brothers and sisters. We can love one another, for love is of God. So you are important. It may seem like you're just one little person sitting in your house all alone, but you are very important. The people that you influence in your life matter. Your influence matters. And by listening to the words of Jeshua, by practicing their embodiment, by finding ways to be at peace and share that peace, to be love and share that love, you are contributing to a better world. You are powerful, far more powerful than you know. You are important. You matter.
Absolutely. Each one of us is a beacon of light. Each of us holds that love that we can spread. And then when we come together, we just multiply it and send it out to the world, because love is much more powerful than guilt or shame or fear or any of those passing emotions.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've heard stories about that, you know. We've heard stories about prisoners of war who, through the most horrific conditions, they managed to maintain an equipoise of peace. And over time, the stories say their jailers developed a tremendous respect for them and protected them.
Yeah. It doesn't matter where we find ourselves, we can still be the lights.
Be the light.
Yeah. Wow. I think we've come on a beautiful journey here together,
Well,
Kimberly.
thank you, Eva. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us and your daily practices that keep you on the path and remembering who you are. and helping all of us remember who we are by that example that you set.
Yep, yep. The totality of isness of you.
Yeah, how big is that?
It's all, it's everything, it's all that is.
Well, because we are all connected, there is no separation, as Jeshua loves to tell us, no separation.
We are not a drop, we are the entire ocean.
That's right. That's another metaphor he uses. So thank you so very much for sharing this with us, and look forward to all your other beautiful practices and ways that you spread love and light in the world. Thank you for all you are, and thank you for being part of our heart family. We love you.
Thank you, Lisa.